Hey, you've landed at episode 81 on the Air Hug Community Podcast. Let's give it a go. Hey, welcome back to the Air Hug Community. We are getting ready with a new episode, but just a quick intro here if it's your first time. My name is Judy Arizosa, and I'm basically the midlife mom next door. But really, I'm just a mom and a wife and a grandma, and this podcast was created because I wanted to share stories and experiences from myself and others who are in this midlife, messy middle part of life. It's wonderful, it's awful, it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's everything. And there are so many stories and experiences that we can share. And that's what this podcast is all about.
I literally every day put my hand on my heart and thank them for the gift they've given me. So yeah, it's pretty special.
I'm blown away. Imagine living your life as a young, healthy professional who's very physically active. And one day, while teaching a fitness class, you collapse and spiral into a life-threatening health crisis. Imagine, as a result of that crisis, needing a new heart. Everybody, welcome back to the Air Hug Community Podcast. And today we have a very, very special guest. We are recording this in February, which is really relative to Heart Month. But if you're listening to it for the first time, it's going to be March when you actually hear the story. But just think about it. Kristy and I randomly came across each other on, I think it was the Go Red for Women Facebook page. And I'm not going to give anything away, but this is Kristy Sidlar. And Kristy, I want you to start your story from the beginning and just let it fly. And I'll interrupt with questions as needed. How's that?
That sounds great. I'll try to take breaths in between. I was actually a fitness instructor in 1996, and I passed out in front of my class. Can you imagine your instructor just going down? And I was, had the paramedics come, and by the time they got there, I had come back too. They figured I'd probably not eaten enough, or I was dehydrated, or whatever the case was. And I did go to the hospital, but they said you're fine, just go about your life. Very long story short, many attempts to try to figure out what was wrong with me. I was finally diagnosed, actually misdiagnosed, with a heart condition that they said was pretty mild. Probably don't exercise as much. It may go away as suddenly as it came on. So do what your body can do. So 3 years later, or over the course of 3 years, I was doing more and more. And you just don't tell somebody who loves to exercise, do everything your body can tell you, because I was starting to do 50-mile bike ride or 50-mile rollerblades and 100-mile bike rides and playing tennis. And none of that was enough. So I thought I would train for a triathlon. And as I was training for my triathlon, I was literally riding my bike to the gym for a swim and a run. And I crested a hill. I was living in Northern California at the time. And I felt myself go into this abnormal rhythm. And I was okay for a few minutes just sitting on my bike. And then I started getting really lightheaded. So I sat beside the side of the road beside my bike. And this was 1999. It was my 31st birthday. I had no cell phone with me, because who did that back then? And I was just lying there, fading in and out of consciousness, assuming I was going to die. And another cyclist came by about 45 minutes later. This was going on. And he called the paramedics, and they came and they used the shock paddles and returned my heart back to a normal rhythm. And just assumed that I had this misdiagnosed issue and I could get it fixed. And it happened again a couple of days later, and they basically put me on hospital arrest. And about 10 days it took them to figure out what was wrong with me. And I have it was very rare 22 years ago. It's not quite as rare now, but a rare heart condition that unfortunately is progressive, and it progresses through exercise.
Oh my gosh.
A really terrible thing to tell somebody who loves to train and love to do what I was doing. So I was told I could walk, I could do some of the basic, low impact, low intensity type exercises. And I listened for a while. But there was a day in particular, I was at the gym and I was on my treadmill, and I was looking at a woman next to me who was at least 10 years older. And I thought, well, she's older than me. There's no way I'm going to let her go faster. So I kept pushing my buttons up on my treadmill. And I went into my arrhythmia. I passed out. I went flying off the treadmill into the mirror behind me. And I said, okay, it's time to walk and do yoga. I will listen to my doctors now. So that was the beginning of really realizing that I'm on this journey. I'm going to get worse. I can slow down how much worse I get. And in the meantime, I'm going to absolutely attach myself to the American Heart Association, and I'm going to do everything I can to help other women understand that they need to be advocates for their own health. And doctors can tell them that, oh, you're just a mom and you're stressed. Oh, you just had caffeine this morning. Oh, it's just that time of the month. Listen to your body, be your best advocate, talk to your doctors, and don't walk out until you have the answer that you need.
Oh my gosh, what a hard way to learn that lesson. Number one, who of us has not been on a treadmill and had someone next to us and decide that, we invent this little competition in our head, which is a whole other podcast about not comparing ourselves. But I mean, when you say listen to your body, we're not talking about the average listen to your body. Like, oh my gosh, can I just ask you, what was the diagnosis?
Yes, it's called arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. And what that means is my right ventricle is diseased. And over time, the progression is the more it has to work hard to make my body or my heart function properly, the bigger it gets. So I literally, I did write a book, which we can talk about in a minute, but I have a photo in my book of the comparison of my old heart x-ray to my new heart x-ray. And my old heart x-ray was like the size of a small child's head. It was literally filling up the right side of my chest cavity. And I mean, it was very, 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 very enlarged.
And that was mostly the right ventricle.
Well, mostly, but even because the rest of the heart had to compensate, the entire heart got enlarged. The muscle, right? It has to work harder. So it just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. A big heart is a bad heart, which I learned in pathology in my undergrad. But anyways, oh my gosh. Okay. So now where do we go from flying off the treadmill to today?
Yes. So I was doing very well. I mean, again, I was listening to my body over the course of many of those years, but again, I knew this was going to get worse and I knew what some of the signs would look like. So the very first sign I ever noticed was I was flying to Brazil for work. And in 2 days, I was on planes for 11 hours, on the ground for a day, and on the plane for 11 hours. And I got off that flight and my legs were so swollen. I mean, I couldn't recognize them. And I called my doctor and he said, that's a sign of heart failure. So it was very early on. I was able to combat it for another couple of years, but then I moved to Singapore and I was working in Asia for 3 years and traveling a lot. And probably about in 2016, I was really starting to notice more of that edema, the swelling of my legs. So they got worse, noticed a few more symptoms, came back, moved back to the United States, was seeing my doctor, my cardiologist, got referred to an advanced heart failure specialist who also was a heart transplant doctor. And as he was evaluating me, he said, you're noticing now that it's going from just the swelling in your legs to, I felt like I had a football in my gut. My liver now was being affected because, my blood wasn't pumping properly. So the blood would and all the fluids were just sort of stopping in my liver. So I had this huge distended liver. So we were now at the point where this was getting very serious. And I would go on a couple mile walks with my husband and I'd have to stop, 5, 6 times. I mean, sometimes just walking up the stairs would be a hindrance for me. So we knew we were getting close. So we went through the evaluation process for a heart transplant. And because I wasn't dire and I was working a full-time job and, I just wasn't making, it's not that I wasn't making a priority, but it wasn't in a big hurry to get all of this testing done. So it probably took 6 months to go through all my evaluations. And they don't just evaluate me for cardiac issues, but they're only going to give a heart to somebody who's going to be able to take care of that heart. So they need to make sure I don't have cancer, that I don't have, bone density issue, that I'm going to fall down the stair, all of those. They really have to make sure that they're being responsible with the heart, this very precious gift that they're giving to someone else. So I was just about to get onto the transplant list. I would have been on March 10th. March 6th, I had a really bad episode over the course of a weekend where my heart was in this arrhythmia. I went to the doctor on Monday morning and no negligence. They were telling me over the weekend, you're fine. Just wait till we can get you into the actual doctor. We can't do anything for you in the ER. Went to the doctor on Monday morning. They immediately put me to the ER. I was put in ICU that night. That was now a Monday. Tuesday, I was on the transplant list. Wednesday, a heart became available, and it was in my body Thursday morning.
That's
It was amazing.
unbelievable. And how quickly you deteriorated from basically Friday to,
Yeah.
and like, come on, the grace of God.
Yeah. Well, and and I think about this a lot, of course, but it was so thrilling for me. Obviously, I was now going to get this second chance. I got the call. But what that means is somebody lost a loved one. Somebody lost their life for me. So, it's always that struggle of, I'm thrilled for myself because of what I'm now able to do. But I do truly daily put my hand on my heart and thank my donor family, and hope that they know. I've written them a couple of letters. I haven't been in contact with them yet. It's up to them whether or not they want to reach out to me. And, they've got to go through their grieving process. So
For
I
them,
may
it's
never,
not even a year yet either, right?
I mean, it may be a while, it may be never. But as long as I can at least let them know how grateful I am. I've sent them pictures of things that I've been able to accomplish since the surgery, so that they're very aware of how special their gift was to me and what it's meant to my my livelihood and my life, and my ability to go on in a way that I wondered sometimes if I ever would be able to.
It's just, when you think about it, a donor family having to make that decision in their terrible grief, and they do it unselfishly, it's like really amazing.
Yes.
Just
yes.
to think about, and the timing, like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
But you were so young. So
yeah,
from
I was 31 when I had my big incident when I was training, and then I lived with this for a little over 20 years. So I was 52 when I got my transplant, and I'm 53 now. So I did find out probably 6 months after my surgery that I was donated my heart by a 37-year-old woman. So I do know the age and I know the sex. I don't know anything else, the circumstance. I don't know where she's from. But like I said, it's important for me to make sure that her family knows how. I mean, you cannot put into words what this means to me, but for them to at least understand that what they've done has made an enormous difference in how I'm going to be able to live out the rest of my life.
what would you say to a family who's waiting for a heart for someone they love?
Yeah. And, it's such a good question, because some people are lucky like me, and some people can wait years, and some people can wait years and never get one. I think the, couple of things that I've learned, and that I believe and have always believed as part of the way I operate in life. I'm very much an optimist. I can even be considered Pollyanna, but I try to put that aside and just stay on the realistic side of optimism. But I think, there is another big philosophy of mine. I am not a worrier. I will not worry about things that are out of my control. And although the wait can be very trying, I just believe you need to be able to look at the positive side, the time you're getting to spend with your family, the fact that, the hope that you will get this gift at some point, and what's on the other side is absolutely incredible. So I think if you are waiting, you have to have hope that there's something there for you. But I think the other side is live every moment that you have while you're on this earth, and really embrace the people around you. I think people want to help. People sometimes don't know what to say because it's awkward and it's awful. But let them help you and be part of your journey of hope along the way, because they want to be part of it as much as you do.
Oh, that's so sweet to let them help, let them know. It can be awkward, it just like, because you don't know how it's going to turn out, and you're waiting, and wow.
And it can sound like, it can sound like platitudes when somebody says, "Oh, you're going to be fine. You'll be fine. It's going to come." And they probably do mean that. But if you hear it enough, sometimes you're like, "I know I've been hearing this for 4 years and I still don't have my heart." So, it can be very, very challenging. And again, I never lived through that situation of having to wait long. So, what I'm saying, please take with the fact that it's, my experience is a little bit different than someone who's on the list for a long time. But
yeah,
regardless, there's still always that hope, and you're living and you're breathing, and you've got family supporting you, and embrace all of that as long as you can.
yeah. So At what point, from the point between being 31 and the point you got your heart, when did you know that you were going to eventually need a heart transplant?
I always assumed that I would.
Oh, you did from the
Yeah,
diagnosis.
my condition was progressive, and I knew at some point I would need one, but we didn't
Oh.
know when. But it was a running joke with my main cardiologist, who every time I would go in for my annual appointment, I would say to him, "So can I have a heart now? Can I get on the list?" He's like, "Kristy, you don't get a heart until you need a heart, and you don't need one yet." But I
Oh,
wanted one
wow.
badly because it was hard for me to see my friends competing in marathons and going to extreme sporting events and being able to do
Mhm.
CrossFit and things that I was not able to do. So it was something that I always wanted, but I knew, practically speaking, I wasn't going to get one until I actually needed it.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So once I got the heart, I mean, I had my surgery. I was pretty out of it for the first couple of days. I mean, I remember a few things, but by day 3, I was actually walking around the hospital, and by day 4, I was doing some stairs. Usually, it takes most patients 10 to 14 days to get released from the hospital. I was out in 8.
Mm.
My recovery was so much better than I expected it to be. Actually, surprisingly, very little pain. I was very uncomfortable, but I never took a pain pill. I never had they cracked my chest open
Chest open. I
and
mean,
sewed me together, wired me together. And so I was expecting, for anybody who's bruised or broken a rib, I mean, I was expecting it to be that you can't even breathe in without pain. And it wasn't that at all. It was uncomfortable sleeping. It was slow going for a while, but my recovery was great. I was back I was in rehab, cardiac rehab, very quickly, and, was making great progress. It was a 24, so 8 week session. I would say by week 6, I was running on the treadmill in cardiac rehab. And that was a really, really emotional day for me to just
yeah.
do something I hadn't been able to do in over 20 years. And then on my 6-month anniversary of my transplant, I completed my first 5K. I've been
Oh
doing
my gosh.
it.
You ran a 5K.
Yeah. I ran Walk It. I still
That
can't run a
counts.
full 5K. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, a transplanted heart works very differently. A lot of the nerves are cut. So I have to warm up for a very long time before I can do anything that's beyond just walking. But regardless, I mean, I completed it, and now I'm actually training for a mini triathlon that I'm doing in Florida next month with my 79-year-old mom. She's going to kill me that I just used her age, but
Okay, wait a minute. We got to clap for her. She's 79 and she's going to do a triathlon.
yeah, she runs, swims, and bikes almost every day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, she's
That
amazing.
that is amazing. Wow.
Yes, I mean, it's been an incredible journey. I think I won't turn around and show you on the video right now, but one of the things that was really special to me, my husband and I have been talking about this since before my transplant. I recently got a tattoo that was a triangle of my old heart rhythm, my new heart rhythm, and my husband's heart rhythm, with a heart in the middle. And he's got one on his arm, and I have one on the back of my neck, and it's just so meaningful to be able to see those 3 parts of our hearts all just interconnected. And it's just such a journey that we've both been on, because he's been with me through this whole thing. And I often think about what he and my family had to go through when I was under the knife for 6.5 hours, and wondering what was going to be happening on the other side. So it's
what
been
were they thinking? Yeah.
how they were worrying, all of that.
Oh, wow. I'm just curious too, like when you walk, when you exercise, do you have the same like perceived exertion? What's different?
It's very different. And one thing I will likely never be able to do is any kind of sprinting again. I always have to get my heart rate up very, very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and I hope this will change over time. I have no idea if my donor was active or not. I don't know if she's, a smoker, or I have no idea. I know that my heart was healthy. I mean, they go through a very, very serious evaluation before they would put it into my body. But I do often wonder if, maybe she wasn't much of an exerciser, because it is harder for me. I'm surprised that by now I'm not able to run for longer periods of time. So I'm playing more with, do I need to warm up more? Swimming is great for me. Biking is great for me. Running has been a little bit more challenging. But regardless of how hard it is, I get on the treadmill or I start going down the street, and it's just such a thrill for me that even if I have to slow down and I have to walk a bit, it's just a gift. It's a gift every time I do it.
Gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
So
be, sorry, go ahead.
please.
I would be so interested to know what your doctor thought if the cardiovascular fitness of that heart, now that it's functioning, within your body, can you improve on it?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I absolutely can. And again, there may be some, functional or physiological issues with the previous heart that, if it's just something that can never progress, but I can't imagine that I won't be able to do more. And it's like anything, it's a muscle. I'm going to be able to improve it. But some of it truly is the functionality of how how the nerves now flow into my heart, and just it does function differently than a typical non-transplanted heart. But I'm in contact with my doctors all the time. I'm always connecting with them before I try anything new. As much as I'm really eager to do all of these things, I'm always doing the checkpoints with them to make sure I'm doing it the healthy way.
Wow.
And then I wrote a book.
Yeah. So tell us I know you don't want to give the book away, and I'm going to put it in the show notes. It's called, is this what I'm looking at? Change of Heart, My Journey of Transplantation, Revelation, and Transformation.
That is correct.
I'm reading off the website.
Yeah,
Interesting. I think I thought I saw this in a comment from you or someone describing you with something about scars. There was a comment about scars.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was on a podcast shortly after my surgery, and it came to me, and I've actually used this phrase quite a bit since then, but to me, scars are stories. And, I think we all think of scars as being something that's ugly and something that happened to us and something that we might want to cover up. And I just look at it as an opportunity to really thrive and use that as a reminder that it's not going to hold me back. It's going to be something that's going to make me even more motivated to do everything I can possibly do. So, I have a scar from where my defibrillator used to be. I used to have an implanted pacemaker defibrillator.
Mm-hmm.
I have my huge scar from the surgery. I've got multiple scars from tubes that I had during my surgery. I've got scars all over my neck from my biopsies that I have to get on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time, and this is probably a whole other podcast episode that you and I could do, but I'm sure body image is something you've talked about quite a bit in your shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge struggle for me my whole life. I was anorexic. I was exercise bulimic. I had major body image issues. And when I got out of the hospital and was bloated and scarred, and I took medication that made my face enormous, that I just had an opportunity to be able to reset myself and say, you know what, this just doesn't matter. And I don't look this way because of something I didn't do on the treadmill or that I ate too much. This is my new life. This is my body. These are things that medications and science and medical technology are affecting me, and I'm going to embrace it. And I'm alive, and I have a whole new gift. And so that's been a huge piece for me. And so when I took all of that, plus as people were talking to me about, gosh, you healed so quickly. And I can't believe how good you look so soon after your surgery, and what, you had a heart transplant 4 weeks ago. And I had some revelations, which is why I put that in the title of my book, about, I came home from the hospital, and I'm a dedicated person, and I know enough about, physical activity, and I know the basics of nutrition. And I know that going to cardiac rehab is going to be important. I have a great social network. So I created a tool called the Wellness Widget, which is 6 different dimensions of wellness. And my book is mostly my journey, but I have a couple chapters specific to how do you look at these 6 dimensions of wellness. And we're never going to be perfect in all 6 of them, but we can always do better. And so if you might have your emotional wellness out of whack, can you get your physical wellness in check? That might even actually uptick your emotional wellness. And if I'm struggling from a social side of my life, and I've become kind of introverted, what's the rationale for that? Maybe I need to do more vocationally, some hobbies, get more into my work, and that might uptick that. So that was really important for me to be able to take some of the things I was observing in other patients in the hospital, wondering if maybe they were going to go home to a cranky wife, and they were going to go back to smoking, and they didn't really care because they didn't want people to come over and visit them because they were cranky. And it just made me realize that there's a whole other way we could be living our lives, that if you get those right, and you do have some trauma in your life at some point, you're going to be really ready for it, and you're going to recover a lot quicker.
Amazing. There was something you said, back up a minute or so ago about right before, how are those people going to react if they're cranky, if they're, and it touched something in me that I wanted to, it's
Social
gone.
network having, was it having the social network? No. It'll
No,
come back to you.
it will
Let's
come
talk about
back.
topic
It
and
will come back. But
back.
I do think we should touch more on going from, all right, so any young female who's interested in being healthy, right, has a whole, we all have a certain, I feel like, body confidence issue. I don't know a single woman that I have ever met in my life who has not struggled with body confidence in one way or another. And for you, obviously the change is so dramatic that you're truly grateful for, I mean, literally waking up and just like, what can you say to people who struggle with like the superficial? You know, we struggle with maybe not being lean enough or maybe not being strong enough, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there is no silver bullet, and I think if I look back at my younger years, this really probably started in late high school. Um, some of it's just ingrained in us, and it is really difficult to flip a switch. But I think as I've now gone through the journey I've gone through, if I could give any advice to somebody who may be in that stuck place where it's just part of how they wake up every day, how they look at themselves in the mirror. I think it's just thinking of your body as truly a vessel of energy and positivity, and being able to be very present with people and having, we've all heard this. You can't be somebody that somebody's going to like if you don't like yourself. You can't be happy if you're not happy with yourself. And I think we need to be able to get past the physical, to be able to get to who we are as a whole human. We have so much worth. And I guess the other thing that when I kind of went through this doorway of being this new person with a new attitude about my physical appearance, I look back on 40 years and think I wasted so much energy worrying about how I looked in a bathing suit, what somebody might be looking at in me. Are they looking at my stomach because I'm sitting down and I might have I mean, it's so ridiculous when I look back all of these things that had gone through my head and wasted so much space in my brain and so much energy that I would much rather have put into other things.
Yeah.
So, it's hard when you're 20 to look at what your life could be and feel like when you're 40. But if I were to give advice to somebody in high school or college, or, shortly out of, into their early part of their career, there are way many other things that you can fulfill yourself with than the worrying about how you look in that pair of jeans.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the whole worthiness thing, for me, that's a topic I circle back to over and over again, because I think women struggle with worthiness, but I think it really begins with when a young lady, right, is at that age where she's searching for a mate. There's a certain look that she feels is attractive. And I think for each of us, it's unique, but I also think that we are bombarded by the media for years and years and years. I'm thinking back to those stupid Special K commercials. You might remember this. Do you remember? Can you pinch an inch? All of a sudden it was like, wait, if you could pinch an inch, you're not worthy.
Yes.
Or,
oh my gosh, I lived by that philosophy for years. I mean, it really did scar me.
And you know what? I don't want to blame the media because they're just trying to make a living and sell something. The people who write those ads are brilliant and they know what the pain points are of young women. But we as young women, and I think we as older women, have a responsibility to help younger women and help ourselves, our contemporaries, because at some point, I feel, not at some point, but I feel like we struggle with it. Many of us struggle with it long term. And we need to help each other and just say, listen, beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. Health comes in all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
You can be healthy at many different sizes. And I want to get that message out there for people to know that. But goodness, you had to go through something very dramatic. You must have had that inkling though before, because as you were starting to have to compromise your exercise and focus on just living and waiting, there had to be the transformation had to be in there. I can't say that, or can you say
Yeah,
when did it happen? Yeah.
I know. I wish I could validate what you're saying, but I was very stubborn. And I mean, I remember again, when I had this whole issue, I've always, I, I've always had a very flat stomach, and it was sort of my favorite part of my body, even though there were times I'm like, I don't want anybody to see it because it's not perfect. But when I had this issue with my liver and I had this distension underneath my right rib cage, it was, I mean, that was so hard for me. I would all of a sudden have to wear, different kinds of clothes because I wouldn't want anybody to think that I didn't have this perfectly flat stomach. And again, I look back and I almost want to laugh at myself. Like I was so ridiculous.
But you're so human, and I love that you're admitting that.
but and by admitting it, I hope I can get somebody else to realize that, oh my gosh, this is just really dumb. And I hope I can wake up in a couple of days and realize this was not worth my energy.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very true. And I still, obviously I want to be fit and I want to feel good. I'm much less worried about if I look good, but I want to feel good. And honestly, my body is in much better shape than it's been in the last 20 years. And I do feel really good about myself, but it's not an indicator of whether I'm a worthy person.
Yay.
It's the fact that it's so much of it for me. And I think anybody, although mine is very significant and I can bring it back to, I'm very thrilled to have a second chance at life. I have a new heart. I have a new life. But anybody can turn that into some benefit. The fact that they spent an hour less a day worrying about whether or not somebody was looking at their butt because they thought it was too big that day. You could have been volunteering and helping somebody else. You could have been a mentor to someone. You could have been giving somebody some positive energy. You could have picked up the phone and called somebody instead of texting them and made their day by saying something positive to them. Yeah. If you can take that hour of worry and turn it into something that's going to help somebody else, let's try there. Let's start there.
I love that. That's a great assignment for all of us as women, instead of worrying literally so much about our physical attributes, call a friend. Maybe they need you that day.
Yeah, totally agree.
So you also volunteer for the American Heart Association. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I have for 22 years. I'm involved in all their major campaigns. So I participate and raise money for the Heart Walk, for Go Ride for Women. Most groups have a heart ball. But honestly, wherever I have an opportunity to do speaking, I used to love it when I would do small group presentations. And inevitably, every time somebody would come up to me afterward, a woman who would say, I have this weird little, or something didn't. And again, I'm not a doctor. I always tell them I'm not purporting to be your doctor. But if you think something's wrong, something is probably wrong. And go to the doctor and make sure that you don't leave that office without asking for every test you think you need to have, and that you're satisfied that your questions have been answered. Because too often, we all know this, women take care of everybody else and not themselves. And they will put themselves last on the list to get checked out. And one thing I love to direct people to, if you haven't seen on YouTube, an Elizabeth Banks video called It's Just a Little Heart Attack. You've seen it.
Yes, I've seen it.
It's the best 3-minute video that just makes you realize I can be an idiot before helping myself because I'm worried about everybody else. And it was such a great, well-produced, very eye-opening, poignant 3 minutes to be able to really get people to think about what they're doing. So that's really what I try to do in the Heart Association. I've been on the board for many years, and any way I can help raise awareness. Heart disease is the number one killer over all cancers plus car accidents, and it is 80% preventable if you know your numbers, know your family history, and take care of your health.
Incredible. Wow. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
And that is so very inspiring.
Great. Thank you.
Amazing. I can't wait to read your book. It comes out on your anniversary, correct?
Yeah, it does. It's actually available right now for pre-sale. So if you go to my website, which is changeofheartmemoir.com, you can pre-order. And then the book will be available to either be sent or downloaded on March 11th, which is my 1-year transplant anniversary.
That's amazing. You must have been working your tail off to get this written.
Well, I was off work for 4 months, so that helped because I was recovering. But yeah, once I went back to work and was training, I actually put the book down for quite a while and cranked a lot of it out over the holidays. But yeah, it was such a fun experience for me to write. I hope people enjoy it when they read it. What could be a pretty grim topic, I used a lot of humor and, just put a lot of anecdotes in to make people go along the journey with me in a way that wasn't feeling like trudgery or gruesomeness. But it was a really fun project for me. And I do hope that, I don't care if I make a dime from the book. I want somebody who needs to read it and have some kind of a positive impact in their life, and then ultimately pay that forward to others. That's really my goal.
Oh my goodness, that is beautiful. And I can't wait to read it. And I can't imagine, folks, it's going to be in the show notes. So I'll put changeofheartmemoir.com in the show notes. So you'll be able to look at it.
Yes.
And where else can people follow you? Are you on any social media?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. I need to get more active on Instagram. I'm just not. But yeah, Facebook and LinkedIn for sure. And just so that Judy, do not buy a book. I'm sending you one signed. So as soon as they're available, I will be getting it in your hands. So don't worry about buying one for yourself. I'm so appreciative for you getting in touch with me so that we could have this conversation. Because again, it's less to me about the book itself and it is about the message. So get it, share it, pass it around, get somebody to make a positive impact in their lives.
Wow, you just put a lump in my throat. Thank you so much. And I will share it. I will share it with my community. It'll be a traveling book. So, wow. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how appreciative I have. And I feel like it was literally a chance meeting. So I'm just going to say really quick, I was on the Go Red for Women Facebook page, which I like to just hop on and every now and then, cheer people on and throw up some words of encouragement kind of thing. It's just like a nice group. And there was a person on the group who had a heart transplant. And I sent a little message in her post. I'm like, hey, would you like to talk about this? And I didn't ever hear from her. But Kristy, you saw the post and that's how we got connected. And we're like, yes, let's chat about this right away. So I'm so glad.
I know I can't see a whole lot of you right now, but just seeing your arms have gotten me motivated. I'm literally looking at my TRX bands. And as soon as I'm done with my work day, I'm getting a TRX workout in because I want my arms to look like yours. So,
oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I'm a huge fan of TRX. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Welcome. You're welcome.
So, all right, folks, Change of Heart, My Journey of Transplantation, Revelation, and Transformation by Kristy Sidlar. Kristy, thank you so very much. Hold on just a second, and we're going to wrap up here. I don't know. Chance meetings often seem to show up just at the right time. And I feel like we read each other's little note on Facebook just at the right time. But anyways, it was an honor to interview Kristy. And we were talking after the interview. And I feel like I've just gained a great friend. And oddly enough, she lives not too far from some family of mine in another state, and I just can't wait to actually go visit her and give her a real big hug in person. But anyways, thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 81 on the Air Hug Community Podcast. And if you enjoyed it, please do me a favor, grab a screenshot, share it on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever your favorite social media is, or just text it to your BFF if it moved you in any way. And thank you so much. Also, if you are so inclined, please leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week here on the Air Hug Community Podcast.